Hi everybody. Today Ruud could not moderate the talks unless he joins in a few minutes, but he's at a meeting for a research proposal. So I'll be moderating the talks. And today we welcome Kylie. Kylie did this PhD at the Center for Environmental Sciences in Leiden, and he's now doing his postdoc there. And he's going to talk about the global trade of plastic waste. So what has happened to the waste after we put it in the bin? The floor is yours, please.
Thanks, Alice. I'd like to share my screen to start my presentation. Yeah, I'm Kai from the Institute of Environmental Sciences. I'm currently doing my postdoc here, and I've also finished my PhD in March, also with this topic in SML. And yeah, the main topic is about the global plastic waste trade. I will start my presentation now. And here you could say actually it's a question, what's the full picture of the plastic waste trade? That's also the point how I started my research, because I think it's really an interesting question, because some people argue that it's pollutes the scented or the received plastic waste in a country may pollute their local environment. But actually, you don't know how pollutant it could be. You don't really have some, figures or values. It's like CO2 emissions or what kind of environmental indicators you can get at the moment. And some people will say, well, it's a recycling business. The plastic waste we send from our countries is to use for recycling in another country. But you also couldn't give the evidence. It's like what's the recycling rate? 12%, 40%, or 60%. So that's how I started with this work, because I think it's interesting, especially when you conduct a research that you don't know the answer about that. And here I'd like to mainly talk about the two questions. The first one is, because we say it's a trade, it's one of a lot of traded commodities, the plastic waste. So how to trace, how to find the data about the plastic waste trade, if you want to know the number? That's one question, and I will talk about the trade balance. So I will talk it later. And another thing is about the recycling rate. So how could we know to what extent the traded plastic waste is recycled? And here is a good picture that's generated by ChatGPT. So I gave the command to it. You can say it shows only you open a container, you know how dirty or how clean the plastic waste is. And before the trade, as a buyer or as a seller, you don't know how clean or dirty it is. So it's really messy. And I first start with the trade balance. So the question is, how reliable is the trade data? So it's not only related to the plastic waste, actually. It's related to all the bilateral trade with the reporting country and also a partner country, with the importing countries or exporting countries in this case. This is a material flow analysis, actually, regarding the UK's plastic production and also the consumption in 2017. So you could say there were different stages regarding primary plastic or end-of-life plastics. And there were some, if you look seriously, you can say there were mainstreams. So the main flows here are the imports and exports, because UK itself has a limited plastic production capacity. So UK relies a bit on the, no matter it's the primary plastic imports or the plastic waste imports or the intermediate products, they rely on the imports and exports. And if you see here, the imports for the plastic in the primary form is at 3.4 million tons in this year. But I would actually question it why it is one value instead of two, because normally this trade will be reported by either the importing country or the exporting countries. So here is an example below. In 2017, UK reported the imports of, for example, LDPE, this specific plastic from Belgium, is at 145 million tons. But if you look at the Belgium's recorded the same for the same plastic, they reported at 97 million tons. So here is a large difference. So when you drawing this material flow, this beautiful figure, which which number you want to trust. So this is quite important issue about the trade balance. And here I'd like to introduce some common data sources. The one is Berkey. Basically, I forgot to introduce the data you found about the bilateral trade is from the UN Comtrade. It's I think it's the largest database about the bilateral trade information. And the Berkey, this database they will give you the balance trade, but they still rely on the UN Comtrade's data. So they balance the data from the income trade and give you the balance data. You can directly use the balance data here in Berkey. And if you're doing the research, there were a lot of good papers published using the Berkey's method to quantify the trade-related impacts, some things like CO2 emissions or other environmental impact indicators. And I'd like to briefly introduce how Berkey works in the trade balance. And here is example. There's a trade balance between country A and country B regarding, we say the commodity is a PE waste. There's a HS code. And in 2025, so in a specific year, and you will look at the trade reporting difference between country A and all its trading partners. So if country A is always report different compared to the trading partners, we don't believe country A. It's like this logic, because there's always a large trade reporting difference. But compared to country A, if country B always report with a little difference compared to its trading partners, then we trust country B a bit, because it's a weighted value. So you won't trust all by country B. There's a weighted value we will calculate it by this with a trade reporting difference. And in Berkey, they will later fit a distribution to this histogram of trade reporting difference, and they calculate the variance. The variance is, we say, is a math term. It's like how spread out your data is. For example, for the country A, it's really spread out than country B. Basically, it's more wide, and country B is narrow. And the higher spread out for country B, it means it has a higher variance, and it indicates a lower weight in the trade balance. So we will allocate lower weight to country A because it's so spread out. So basically, I put it in a simple way to introduce it. Actually, there are a lot of mathematics equations there, but basically, it's following this logic. And here are some issues we don't want to say we are challenging Berkey's way, but at least there are some things you could reflect it by their original method. The first one is maybe some countries they deliberately over-report or under-report its trade. So the mean value of this distribution, the distribution of this trade reporting difference for this country is not at the zero. This means if you use Berkey's way, you are more likely to calculate a wrongly variance, so a different variance than the true one, because the distribution is not like we say with the mean at zero, it's with the skewness leaning towards one side, either left or right. So that's one of the problems. Another issue is when we talk about trade reporting difference before, we say between country A and all its trading partners, it's an aggregated trade reporting difference, aggregated by all the commodities, apples, bananas, they are the traded product, right? And also the plastic waste, you aggregate them together. And also the years, for different years, and also the country's role. We say the country serves as importer or exporter. You place them together. But how about we say, if country A report apple well, but not good for the plastic waste, it's possible, right? So that's another issue we want to quite embark here. And we also, in my own work, I come up with different method, but basically follow the way, Barkey's way. The first one is we just use another distribution. It's not always assume it's a normal distribution. We try to fit the trade reporting difference, use a skew normal distribution. So you can capture the two behavior. So it's the skewness. That's one thing. Another one is instead of we calculate a weighted average. Sometimes people argue that only one side is totally right. So only one reported value from one country is correct. Another one is totally wrong. If you calculate the balance value, you partly include the bells. So we directly trust one country, but follow the way we come up with for the first way, and we trust only one country and totally get rid of the number reported by another country. That's another method. And also, there's a third method. We calculate unit value. So instead, for each trade, actually, you get from U-income trade, that's largest trade database, you can get the trade volume. That's the thing we want to balance. You can also get the trade value. It's the money you spend on this trade, right? Then you can calculate a unit value. And also for this commodity in that year, you can calculate the global average. So in this way, basically, the closer the calculated unit value from one country to the global average, we will allocate more weight to this country. We believe the trade value reported by this country is also correct. And this way is based on the Chatham's method using in the resourcetrade.earth.com. So it's actually a well-established method. And but I will skip this part. We did some improvements, but not a lot. But I will later mention if you use the unit value as an agent to calculate the trade balance, there's actually an issue about it because for a lot of commodities, you don't get one global average. You get a lot of actually unit values from this commodity. I will talk about it later. And here I introduce some of the ways actually maybe you are interested or you want to apply it to your own work if you if you are involved in some trade-related work. The one is Barkey I mentioned. Yeah, I mentioned some drawback of this database because it gave us a balanced trade with their own method. But what I want to say is not only trust Barkey, maybe you can trust other balanced database you can find. And another one I mentioned here is Chatham House. They just use unit value based balance. You can also sometimes you can also look at their balance trade. And maybe you can also find some database related to the trade balance on specific commodities like critical raw materials. So my suggestion is if you want to do the trade balance, try your best to find all the data sources, and maybe you can do some uncertainty analysis to make your results more robust. And here is one thing I'd like to introduce. That's actually what I'm doing during my postdoc. So not only for the trade balance, I also look at the unit values under each HS-coded commodities. So here, I give you an example. Why we say sometimes you couldn't get one global average value from one HS-coded commodity. If you look at the plastic waste, it's so messy. If you see the HS code 391590, it's a figure on the far right. you look at the distribution of the unit values calculated under this HS code, actually, you found there were a lot of peaks for different unit values. One peak is like one unit value clusters. So you couldn't find just one global average. So you couldn't just place all unit value together and divide it by, we say, its volumes, and you get one global average. It's not. You could do that, but actually, it didn't give you the choose. So you may need to find there are all the clusters and the mean value of each clusters. Then you calculate the mean value or the representative values from this distribution. I think it's a good way. And in my method, I could also tell you for each cluster, it accounts for how much percentage. So I think it's give you a better picture about unit value distribution. Yeah, so that's one of the work I'm doing. And then we come to the second topic. So besides the trade balancing, another thing that's important to help you figure out the fate or the destiny of the traded plastic waste is the recycling rate. Because we say no matter you want to know the environmental impacts of the traded plastic waste, or you think it's a recycling business, or you think it's polluting the environment, you should know the recycling rate. Because we know the truth is recycling help to reduce environmental impacts. And if you look at this figure, it's also from the same paper we mentioned before. They calculate the recycling rate of UK through this material flow analysis. And here, if you, without considering the exported plastic waste, because you don't know the fate of the exported plastic waste from UK. For example, it flows to China. You don't know the recycling rate for this part. If you, without considering the exported plastic waste, you calculated recycling rate is at, we say, 12%. By, say, yeah, and when considering all the exported plastic waste, we say here is 1.1 million tons. I just check it. And you divide this 1.1 to the 3.3, that's the total generated plastic waste in UK in 2017 is nearly 33%. So here's a large gap between when without or with considering the exported plastic waste recycled. So that's the starting point. Also, if you look at another case about the Germany, it's the same. If you don't consider the recycling happened outside the Germany, because Germany also exported a lot of plastic waste overseas. Maybe you calculate a different recycling rate. So without considering the exported plastic we recycled, it's 37%. And by considering the exported plastic waste all recycled, it's 47%, so 10% difference. And here's a question: how's the recycling rate of those traded plastic waste? And I'd like to show you the logic about how people think of this question. Here is a news reported by The Guardian. So they're talking about the UK's exported plastic waste to Turkey. And they say Turkey has a plastic recycling rate. This is really a general one. It's at 10%. And even this world, we recycle only 9% of the plastic waste. So they get into a conclusion that Turkey, they talk about the Turkey imported plastic waste from UK. So they say that Turkey perhaps can only recycle around 10% of imported plastic waste and leave the rest mismanagement. So that's how they think of this issue. This is their logic. But here I want to mention they actually use a different concept here. The domestic recycling rate, or we say the general recycling rate we usually refer to, is the recycled plastic divided by the domestically generated plastic waste. And this is not equal to the, we say by dividing the recycled plastic by the imported plastic waste is recycling rate of the imported plastic waste, right? So they have different base, different denominator. And I also give two reasons. I say this logic is wrong. One is that perhaps the imported plastic waste should be more clean than the domestic generated plastic waste because we consider it as a commodity that could be traded globally. That's one thing. Another thing is actually it's the importing country pay for the plastic waste. So if UK exported plastic waste to Turkey, in this way, Turkey pay the money. Also, if you look at this figure, it's an iceberg figure. Uh, you say China actually imported lots of the plastic. Um, I think the lifespan is from 2008 to 2022. China is top importer about the plastic waste, but also China spend a lot of money on this. It's not like we say, oh, Germany or Netherlands exported plastic waste to China, and they pay the money. Actually, it's China pay the money. So I think China will try. Not only China, also the importing country. All the importing countries will try their best to cover this money they spend on this by recycling or other ways. Other ways they could get the money back. For example, the importing cost or recycling cost. So that's the two evidence support that the recycling rate may be higher than we thought, especially you compare to the domestic recycling rate of these importing countries. So with this logic, we come up with a new equation to calculate the recycling rate. But here, I still want to say, we know the best way if you want to check the recycling rate is just through the field research. For example, you come to China, you go to the recycling plants, you just measure the mass of recycled plastic and divide it by total the imported plastic weight. That's really simple, but it takes time. It takes labor. So, but it's the best way I still want to highlight. And what we come up with this new measure is a way we don't need to go to China to conduct this investigation. So I still want to highlight it before. So in this equation, you will have the denominator is unit price of the recycled plastic. So it's after recycling, it will be multiplied by the physical loss during this recycling process. And also the numerator, which is the things on the top, is all the money you spend on this business. It's like the importing cost, the unit price for the importing cost. Also the recycling cost. Here I involve three things. One is the electricity, because if they run the recycling business locally, there's a electricity bill, also the labor bill, also the rental cost. So there should be also other costs, but I only consider these three because it's difficult to trace the data about other costs. Here is the logic. If you can sell the plastic waste with a higher money, you will get higher unit value of the recycled plastic. So you will get a higher denominator, and you will get a lower RRR. So it means it's really easy for you to recover from this business because you can sell it with a higher price. And also, if you think of those numerator, the recycling cost, if you really have a higher recycling cost, no matter due to higher electricity or labor, you will get a higher RR, required recycling rate. It means it's difficult for you to recover from the money you spend on this. So that's how this equation works. And I will skip the part how I collect the data for the unit price for the importing plastic and also the unit price for the recycled plastic. These are two items highlighted in yellow. I collect the data from the income trade I mentioned before. And for other costs, recycling costs, like electricity, labor, and rent, it's basically collected manually by myself for different countries for different years. And this is the final result about the required recycling rate, RRR, what happened in different countries. And if you look at this figure, it's a kind of complex, but I will show you. The left bar for each country is all the cost you spend. It's like here is the first one. The first block is rent, and the second one is electricity, and the third one is labor, and the final one is with importing price. And the right bar, which is a little bit higher, is what we call is a unit price for the recycled plastic. So the RR basically is calculated by dividing the right bar, the value from the left bar to the value from the right bar. And the dot is RR, is the required recycling rate in this figure. And there's 4 blocks indicating 4 different plastics, PE, PS, PVC, and others. And the results is like the lowest are happened in which countries? They are Thailand, Turkey, and the Czech Republic. And calculating with a range from 40% to 50%. What does it mean? It means it's more easy for those countries to do this business, to cover all the money they spend on this and get the benefits. And also the higher are happened in countries like the UK, the Belgium, and also the Canada, ranges between 6% to 80%. We also calculate a global average during this time span from the 2030 to the 2022 is 63%. So just imagine they give us a hint that for a country, because it's global, it's an average value. So I just say if a country wants to uh, do this business, they want to import plastic waste from another country, they at least recycle with the recycling rates at 63%, they can get the money back. So that's how we estimated this required recycling rate. And we think we also compare the domestic average of those countries is at 23%. So actually, we think the recycling rate of those imported plastic waste could be a little bit higher than the domestic average than we thought. And we just apply this 63% to the previous UK's case we mentioned, because without recycling rates, you can calculate a value for UK, and also with not without recycling rates, without considering the exported plastic waste, they are all recycled, you can calculate the one. And also another one by considering all they are recycled. And now we calculate it for the UK's case, it's at 25%. So basically, that's all I want to introduce. I'm happy to discuss with you if any questions raised by you.
Thank you very much, Kai, for your very interesting presentation. So indeed, the floor is open for questions. Does anyone have a question? I have a question then. I was wondering if I'm not really expert in that domain, but yeah, at the beginning of your presentation, you presented the reported exported waste and the recyclability that is reported by the UK of 30%, because they considered all exported waste recycled 100%. Is it the rule to report it like that? Do every countries calculate their recycling a rate like this? That all the exported waste is 100% recycled?
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. We settled down the rule about this, how we report these countries' recycling rates. Should we consider those plastic waste we send out of this country? But I just found because I'm doing spend a lot of time doing this kind of research, so I just checked the literature review. Some some people just include that part, and I think for a lot of cases they don't consider those exported plastic waste recycled. They just put them aside and focus on the domestic recycled plastic and divided by the total generated plastic waste in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they have little information for the recycling rates of those exported So yeah, that's the case,
Okay.
I think.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what does the EU say? Because of course the EU has set targets for recyclability, like I forgot how much it is, but yeah. So the reported numbers from different countries are compared to those targets. But is there any rule as how you should calculate your what you report? I'm a bit confused
Yeah.
by that, because now, like in the Netherlands, we report like some kind of 40% for
Oh yeah,
packaging, for
maybe.
example. But if we consider all the exports, and I think we export like 30% or more of our domestic waste, what does it mean then? If it's considered 100% recycled, then it doesn't mean anything compared to the European target. We are much lower
Yeah.
then.
Yes, thank you, Alice. I think that's an interesting question about the policy. I'm not sure for this part. I really nothing in my mind. I don't have some documents about this, but I know they have the regulations to ban the plastic waste, especially ban the plastic waste exported to the non-OECD countries. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
from the 2027. Yeah, I know some. Yeah, that's something I know about the laws,
Okay.
legislation about this part. But yeah, I'm not sure about how the calculation, the methodology about they calculate the recycling rates. But well, I think you mentioned the 40% recycling rates in the Netherlands. I'm not sure. I think it's not included those exported maybe it's included all the exported plastic we recycled in this context. Otherwise, I think it's a little bit high. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how the yeah. I'm
Okay.
not sure actually.
We have another question from Gloria. Please go
Yeah.
ahead, Gloria.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm Gloria from the Technical University of Denmark. I have a question actually related to policies and regulation. I was wondering if you know how, or you have an idea of how policies and regulations like EPR and so on will shape the future import and export dynamics. Like, how do you, just if you have an idea, otherwise, I know this is like slightly
Uh,
different from like what your focus is on, but yeah, if you have, you can
yeah.
elaborate a bit more.
Thanks, Gloria. I think yeah. I'm not really focused on the policy side, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just analyze data actually during my PhD. But from what I observed, these sites, the plastic waste trade is shifting much more on the global north countries.
Mm.
So especially after the China's ban in 2018, because China's before is a with top importer, we say maybe around 60% or 70% of total traded plastic waste was shifting to China. But after China's ban in 2018, before because we say a lot of plastic waste come to China, so it's like the trade is from the global north country to the global south countries. And after China's ban, I think then it comes to the Southeast Asia countries. You say a
Mm.
lot of people from Vietnam or Indonesia complain that the plastic waste polluting their environments. And during this moment, actually a lot of trade happens within the global north. So I think in the future there will still, especially there were a lot of international laws or regulations introduced regarding to restricting the trade. So a lot of trade could be happened, for example, from the Netherlands to Denmark or to Germany, maybe not to Denmark, from Netherlands to Germany or from the to just between the OECD countries or broadly global north countries.
Yeah.
That's what maybe I can see from my own analysis through the data by the timeline, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other question? I was wondering myself, so you showed the equation, how you measure the recycling rate based on, if I understand correctly, economic viability. So you said, yeah, if they want to make profit and make money out of it, then it has to be that recycling rate. And this equation prevents me to go to China to check if it's indeed the case.
Yeah.
But is there any, do you plan to do any validation of this methodology?
Yeah, it's
Is
true.
it even possible?
Yeah, if you only say we want to check the exported plastic waste, what happened to them in China, you could go there and maybe there were a lot of local recycling companies. I'm not sure they want this data is available if you
I'm more concerned about other countries that are not yet the level of China in terms of recycling facilities, where we are now exporting our waste. But yeah, in general, yeah, I was just wondering if you were planning to yeah, confront your theory or your equation to real data, and yeah,
yeah.
what extent this is possible.
Yeah. I don't have the plan actually,
Okay.
because yeah, I asked another friend, another colleague. She's from India. He said she said it's difficult to get this kind of the field research data because it's just like I mentioned, it's difficult to get the company's data if you just ask them to for example to check the volume for the
Yeah.
recycling, yeah, for the recycled plastic and also the total imported value for this company. I think is because it may relate you to the local environmental laws or what kind of regulations. Anyway, it seems like reporting those values is not good for their own business. That's from a that's just from my feelings and also the talk with the colleague.
Yeah.
So I think it could be difficult, especially maybe not the countries in China. If you maybe for India, for like Southeast Asia countries, yeah, I'm not sure, but I think yeah, there's a difficulty to get the real data there. But that's the best way, like we mentioned. There should be some people doing this work. Other, Otherwise, yeah, you could like in my way, you come up with a metric to estimate this required recycling rates, but yeah, it's in an economic way, right?
Yeah.
It should be validated. Yeah, it's
Ming
true, but
Ming
yeah.
has a question as well for you.
Hi, Mimi.
Hi, Kai. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Lisa, for the discussions. I'm just curious, after 4 years of research, so now you understood some part. Can you hear me properly? Hello?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah. If you already understand, because there is a mismatch between the reporting and the different balance over the both sides of the trading, then
Yeah.
what if we already understand this? So mathematically, we could have a best guess. So I think after this calculation, we can have a best guess. After this learning, then what are your plan to move ahead with this research? So from here, the knowledge, what we can bring back to improve the reality. Just how can we feedback this information to improve our plastic management or plastic monitor or improve our European plastic circularity, or what is your next step?
Currently, I'm doing the database for the trade balance. Actually, not only for the plastic waste, also for all the commodities. From the original data in UN countries. So the basically customers data, collected from each country's customs, and also doing the trade value analysis. So looking to the unit value distribution for each HS coded commodity. And I think at least for now, what I learned, which could help I mean, uh, maybe later you could help, something you could help other people's work is that if you know, for example, by analyzing the unit value of each HS code commodity, for the plastic waste case, you could say it's really massive. You couldn't find a global average. We couldn't say, well, the average traded unit value for the plastic waste is at which because there were a lot of peaks there. So there were the high quality plastic waste with a higher unit value and also the bad plastic waste, which indicating I think they should have more coded commodities allocated to plastic waste. So not only we say 3 or 4, HS code you can trace for the plastic waste. You should have broad HS codes for only the waste product, not only for the plastic waste, because I see the waste product normally has just limited HS codes compared to its primary products. So maybe if I show the figures, I mean the distribution of unit price, it helps the people, I mean, planning to just increase or design a new structure for the HS coding. That's one thing. And for the trade balance, I'm not sure because what I do actually is try to balance the regional trade data, but it's really the import. If you want to increase the transparency about the bilateral trade, it really lies on the original data reported by the customers. So I think I'm not sure what we can do to inform policymakers about this part, but yeah, maybe it's a duty from the World Customers Organization or the UN Statistics Department. I think I'm not sure. Yeah, at least I'm not sure how I can help them to offer the better original data from each country's customers. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the effort. At least you bring more methods there which they can use to check. Thank you.
I hope it could be useful. Yeah.
I had maybe another question. I was wondering if there was any difference in types of polymers in your research. Did you identify like PE is different than PS or PET, or is there any difference in, because the economic value at the end is also a bit different, I would guess. Recyclability is also more or less difficult depending on the polymer type, and I guess when we export, most of the recycling is done by mechanical recycling. Is there any difference between the different types of plastic that we consume?
Yeah, we include limited plastic with type actually, because it depends on the resolution of the HS codes. We have the PE, PS, PVC, and others. Actually, these others is really overarching, I could say. It includes a lot of plastics, and but we allocate this others group to the PET, mainly the PET and PP, according to the data we collected. And we think the required recycling rate for PE is maybe the highest one, and the PVC is the lowest one. So if you want to doing the PVC importing business, I mean the PVC waste, it's difficult to get the money back, because it's basically you calculate that metrics by dividing the cost and the benefits, and actually the virgin PVC, there's a little price difference between the recycled PVC and virgin PVC. So I think those recycling company won't import a lot of PVC in this case, and it's difficult to mechanically recycle PVC. I think, from my knowledge, it's much more easier to mechanical recycling PE or PS, not PS or PP. I think. And regarding when you mentioned the chemical recycling, I think if you look at even at a global level, it accounts for maybe 1%.
No, I was talking about mechanical. Sorry, mechanical recycling. Yeah, chemical is, I guess, not yet so much developed that it's being used in where we send the plastic.
Yeah, especially in some Southeast Asia countries, I think they mainly adopt the technology. It's actually not the technology; it's basically the mechanical recycling, because it's much easier to recycle those plastic. It involves more, I mean, maturity technology level if they want to employ chemical technology, right?
Yeah. I have a follow-up question, but I see that Karine also has a question. Go ahead, please, Karine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you can see me as well.
Not anymore. We saw you before, but now not anymore.
Now?
Yes.
Now you can see me?
Yeah.
I think. Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to also share with you that I work as an independent partner to the group Corsair International, and they're based in Thailand, and they do collection, cleaning, and recycling of plastic waste.
Yeah.
And the leaders of the company are coming to the Netherlands on the 20th of May in Barn. So if you want an example of a business case scenario of a company and to look at how they do it and how they're going to measure the plastic waste and also trace with blockchain, and also they are more up to date with regulation with the EU. Yeah, I would like, if it's okay with you, I can share the data of that meeting on 20th of May, because they are only coming to Europe, I think, one time. They're doing a European tour.
Yes, thanks, Karina. I will check, but I'm not sure. I have a holiday in the end of the May, but yeah, I will. Yeah, but I can still contact you and also the talent company you mentioned, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
So
not sure.
is it okay if I share in here, and feel free to in your chat, and feel free to connect directly with me if you want to
Thanks.
have
Yeah.
more information.
Yes,
Thanks a lot,
thanks.
Karin, for sharing. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to hear, Karina. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the insight and the details. It's more complex than I knew.
Yes, I'm happy. Yeah, you get something. Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other question from the audience? No. Then I have a last question. Actually, it's a bit following what I just asked before, but I was wondering, because in the Netherlands we kind of struggle keeping recycling businesses alive. So there are like 5 or more companies that went bankrupt in the last years because importing virgin plastics is cheaper. How do the other countries manage then to still make profit when we lose our recycling companies? Is it because they have more volume because they're importing so much from us? How does that work?
I think it's because it's difficult for Netherlands, the labor cost, right? A lot of things happen is a labor cost, not only for the recycling plastic, I think, also for the manufactured products, because here the labor cost is expensive, and especially when we mention countries like Southeast Asia, I think they're because
Okay,
they
that
yeah
makes sense.
yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the main issue, I think. And maybe I still think they try for the recycling company here, they try to produce a high added value products,
Yeah.
even for the recycled plastic products. So I think they are running different recycling business for
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
products. Otherwise, it couldn't, yeah, you couldn't get you the profit back. Yeah.
Okay, indeed. Now, thank you very much for all your insights. And if there are no more questions, then I think we can adjourn this meeting. Thanks a lot, Kai. And good luck with the continuation
You're
of your
welcome.
research and the
Thanks.
defense then of your PhD soon.
Oh, I've done that.
Oh, I
We'll see.
understood. Yeah, that's what I thought. And then you said that you would finish. So maybe I misunderstood at some point. But yeah, good luck with the continuation of
Yeah,
your
but
research.
thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
Elisa.
everyone. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
everyone. Bye-bye.